All right, thank you for tuning in to Niaga AWANI. Malaysia's construction pipeline remains active from infrastructure and industrial projects to commercial and urban developments. Now that we are already in 2026, the reality on the ground is clear. What it takes to deliver a project successfully has clearly changed, and speed and cost are no longer the only benchmarks. Projects today are more complex, more regulated, and more closely scrutinized by clients, regulators, financiers, and also future asset owners. So the big question is, what must developers and also contractors get right, not just to win projects, but to deliver them well and sustainably? So joining us today is Damian Lusty, the Head of Direct Business Sika Malaysia. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming all the way to our studio on Niaga AWANI. Perhaps we could start to actually ask you to open the discussion. Firstly, before we go deeper, on your vantage point, Damian, how would you describe the current construction landscape in Asia Pacific as a whole and also specifically for Malaysia? How do you see it going in 2026 and further?
Asia Pacific in general is quite fractured. We're seeing a massive decline in China, which is affecting surrounding countries as well. But as a standalone, Malaysia is relatively buoyant. We've had growth in Malaysia 8+% over the last couple of years, and with the expectation that it's going to continue to grow 4%, which could even be greater with foreign investment that's coming into Malaysia.
And before we go further, perhaps you can share on briefly the history of Sika, especially when it comes to showcasing commitment on innovation and also sustainability.
So Sika is a very well-established company globally. We operate in 103 companies with over 400 production sites, as well as innovation hubs by the regions. In Malaysia, we have 6 factories, so we're able to cater to all regions in Malaysia, including East Malaysia, with the expectation of our customers that we partner. We don't customer-supplier relationship, meaning that we see the entire value chain. By seeing the entire value chain from design to construct, we're able to pull these global resources and share best practice from outside the region to inside the region to inside the countries.
Damon, I want to understand further about the industry. We often hear that the project pipeline remains strong, but yet many industries say delivery is becoming harder and not easier. So from your perspective, what's actually driving demand and also urgency across key sectors right now, and why does it feel different from previous cycles?
I think several reasons. When we look at it in Sika, we look at the vertical market structure, depending on whether it is government infrastructure, whether it's a key project with multinationals, or whether it's residential and commercial developments. So each industry has a different role to play. For example, maybe 60% of the market right now is residential versus 40% in government. And then we break it down further and look at what is new build versus what is repair. So if you're looking at government projects, it's up around 80% is new build, only 20% is refurbishment, where the split with the private sector is more 70-30. So our focus and how we approach each market is very different. Obviously, the big driver right now is the data centers and semiconductors, with some major infrastructure projects coming up.
But you mentioned on the factors that contributes to the risk that we have right now. But when we talk about complexity, it's not just the design anymore. It's how regulatory requirements, it's the compliance standards and the documentation expectations that change the way projects are now executed on the ground. So what do you think about that?
Yes, complexity in the market is definitely changing. Like I mentioned, with the introduction of the major companies like Google, Amazon, Meta, especially with the data centers, it's coming with new specifications. New specifications, especially around sustainability and the requirements for CO2 reduction as well as cumulative energy demand reduction. So these multinationals are really looking at their Scope 1, Scope 2 and Scope 3 developments. This is adding levels of complexity to specifications that we're seeing coming in, And companies like Sika are having to significantly adapt the way we approach our products, our innovations, and our approach to the market is definitely becoming far more technical.
And let's take a step back. In the past, speed and cost, these two things could actually sometimes compensate for other gaps that we see right now. So today, in comparison, would it be fair to say that execution, quality and also compliance discipline are now just as critical, if not more? And why is that shift happening, Damian?
Well, when we talk about this, this links back to sustainability. So sustainability in the past has been a term to talk about diversity, it's been a term to talk about all cross functions, EHS, as well as sustainable products. Sustainability now is moving more into what we would call circular economy. So everything you talk about, speed and cost and all the way through to recycling, end of life. This is now encapsulated in what you call circular economy, which will be more of a catchphrase than sustainability itself. When we look at circular economy, we need to not only look at the first phase, which is the raw material to the production, to the design of the building, to the in-use phase, but also the recycling phase. And how can we address each part of the circular economy to significantly reduce our cost to the environment. In doing so, we add pressure to our wallets. There are costs involved with this, especially around documentation. The documentation side with environmental product declarations, with life cycle assessments, adds complexity to both products as well as to the bottom line of major developers. And for this, everyone needs to change.
How would you describe the difference of the complexity of today if we were to compare it with perhaps 10 to 20 years ago, where sustainability is not the common topic now and also there were less demand on data centers? How would you describe that?
You can't fake sustainability. Okay, when you have a demand for a product, which is a commoditized product, that you can buy anywhere with maybe some fishy QC or some issues in development, or the location that you get it, whether it's from China or whether it's local or whether it's imported from Europe, etc., etc. With sustainability, we have to track every aspect of the product and every aspect of the construction. So sourcing is a big issue because transport's a big issue. This is all captured and documented in the sustainable documents like EPDs, and it's governed by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. So we have framework around it. All these documents also have to be third-party verified and then published onto a global database. So there is no getting around. Originally in the early days of sustainability, this term came up called greenwashing. This is when people would try to profit off sustainability.
Greenwashing, yeah.
And this is no longer possible because it's so highly regulated. Even in Malaysia now, MyCrest has just been established, and this is an online tool that will monitor and regulate the sustainable requirements for Malaysia.
Let's talk further about challenges. We've touched on costs, which would eventually affect our pockets with higher material costs and tighter timelines and also more scrutiny. Where are project teams feeling the most pressure today? Because you're in the industry, you're the head of business. So is it cost control, risk management, or something else that you can share?
Again, it's all of the above, and it all fits into the sustainability category. So cost control is always going to be an issue. Reasonable, sensible supply is the key. You have to have a very good procurement. You have to have a good idea of where your products are coming from, as well as partner with suppliers that are relevant to the market, to your market. Durability is now also a key topic. I think we can look at the Malaysian construction industry in the past, and we look at the statistics for the buildings, for example. 90% of our buildings in Malaysia leak in some way, shape or form, whether it's coming through the roof, whether it's coming through the waterproofing failure, whether it's coming through the walls, whether it's a wet room, we leak. Now, there are additional costs to repair. So this is looking at the use phase cycle of construction. So when there are costs to repair, yes, is it decreasing the estimated useful life of the building, or is the repair effective enough to increase the estimated useful life of the building? But these are things that we have to balance between the technologies we use and the initial investment of a building in terms of getting a better quality material versus getting something constructed quickly as well as cost effectively, and you're pushing the cost further down to the end users.
So basically what we can say is any small specification misalignments can actually quickly turn into costly side issues. That's what you'll be saying. So can you explain why that risk has become much bigger in today's environment if you were to compare to before?
To historically? It's right now we can calculate these impacts, or we can do advanced estimations on these impacts early on in the construction. Previously, we weren't doing these calculations. So the design life is extremely important, but the floor space is also extremely important. We're now having concrete, for example. Higher strength concrete is available, so we can make slender columns rather than large columns to hold the same amount of weight. So you maximize your floor space. In the future, we expect that carbon tax will be implemented at some stage. So this comes into our scope 1 and 2. So the office building that we're working in and what powers this office building. There is a big push now to reduce the power consumption of buildings. This is looking at the Green Building Index. So will that building itself have a higher value to people coming in? It may be a different aspect that we need to start considering, because taxation is going to be an additional cost for the end users, which wasn't considered previously.
Amazing. Damian, I hope you can stay put, and to viewers, we have a lot more to discuss after this, but we have to go for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Niaga AWANI, and we're still in the discussion about the construction industry in Malaysia 2026 and moving forward. We have discussed a major of challenges, and also when it comes to the complexity of the industry before we go break. So in that sense, Damian, let's continue our discussion. We can say that challenges are no longer just technical, they're also about process, discipline, coordination, also documentation accuracy. So my question to you now is, what are you seeing separate well-run projects from problematic ones?
Sorry?
What are you seeing separate well-run projects from problematic ones? Perhaps you can share some of the success stories that you've done before.
Well-run projects, every project has issues at some stage. The data centers that we're doing now are very specific. For Sika, I mean, we see construction as chemistry. We look at construction from the concrete and the waterproofing into the floor to the waterproofing in the ceiling and everything in between. With this approach, we need to be very connected to the entire value chain. So with the likes of Googles and Amazons, we need to be very close with the owner, the designers, the architects. We have to partner very well with our applicators as well. Our applicators are an extremely important partnership to us, because we also share the liability. If we have poor application in any of these, then our liability significantly increases. The chance of failure increases. So education as well is very important. So complexities around these data centers for such major projects, it's so important to have alignment all the way through the value chain, which means that you can have 5 or 6 different companies working together as one, which is actually quite a feat in itself.
So sustainability is one thing, durability is another. There's a growing view that durability isn't just about engineering, it's actually a risk management in any industry, not just construction. So why is durability becoming such a critical conversation for developers and contractors today to actually build successful projects?
So it depends what you call durability. Durability is what we would generally say the in-use phase of any given structure. This is durability around how long the products last, how long the structures last, whether they're easy to repair or difficult to repair. And ultimately as well, durability also includes the end of life, which previously we haven't really discussed because mostly when you have come to demolition time of the building, it's also durable if you can reuse the demolition waste from a structure. So this is also needs to be taken into consideration when designing a durable structure.
But with rising material and logistic costs, how does designing for long service life and fewer repairs actually translate into better cost outcomes over time in the future?
There's always a play-off. If you're having to repair a building over and over, it means the building also has some kind of downtime. When people are working on the building, there's an increased chance of health and safety issues as well, because you have people at heights, you have people in enclosed spaces. And of course, you also have the costs of having to redo mistakes. When we look at these costs, whether they add up to more than the initial design, rather than cheapening the design initially, and how they get transferred to the end users. This is also needs to take into consideration. Are these borne by the people buying into the structure, or are they borne by the owner of the structure, the developer of the construction? So it's a very hard question to answer directly, and it really does depend on the structure you're building. But design life, obviously, if you can expand the cost of the material over 100 years rather than 20 years, then obviously your CO2 is decreasing.
But would you agree that the most sustainable building is often the one that doesn't require repair frequently or replacements? Or how should teams think about the durability in that broader sustainability context?
Yes, if you're designing a building that doesn't need to you don't need to touch over time. This is decreasing liability. It's decreasing additional costs in both material as well as manpower. However, it also depends on the material you're using. The material you're using, if it's a recyclable material, it can also be a perishable material. So this is built into the design life calculations as well, because it's expected that it will fail or it will require periodic maintenance. And this can all lead to greater design life, but it can also lead to further failures. So there's a play-off between how green the building is, but ultimately, when you talk about CO2 reduction, you're talking about the scope 1 and 2, so the direct and indirect costs to CO2. And the biggest concern for people right now is the energy demand of these buildings. Energy to heat and cool. So you're looking at insulation and products more advanced to help insulate the building, and things like lighting as well. So these all have aspects towards CO2 and durability, which needs to be considered in the entire structure and design of the building.
And as we speak right now, viewers that contains clients, financiers and regulators are now asking tougher questions towards the industry. So from what you're seeing, Damian, how have sustainability expectations have changed, especially for contractors and suppliers from the point of view of Sika?
Yes, so there is additional value to making green buildings. Okay, there are a lot of companies, especially multinational companies, are bringing in sustainability specifications to the country, and they have scope 1 and 2 CO2 reduction targets, which are net zero targets. Most people well-known phrase. This isn't just the multinational companies. This is also the people financing these. A bank has scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 targets. Scope 3 is your products. So if a bank's product is their cash, they're financing a building. A green building has a lower CO2 footprint for their scope 3. So they're more likely to invest into a green building than they are into a heavily CO2 structure. So it touches every aspect. The regulation part is outside of this. The regulation is to monitor that everything is done according to the ISO and EN standards.
And earlier on you mentioned about EPDs, and now we're hearing more about that, also life cycle assessments and carbon data, and also data centers. So why is it verified data becoming so important, and not just for certification but also for project credibility, Damon?
For avoidance of greenwashing. Like I said before, these documents are required initially in the sustainability journey. These documents were required just to have a record of data. Now these documents are required to do eco-efficiency analysis. This is where they compare different EPDs or LCAs to each other. That's environmental product declarations or life cycle assessments. And we want to show now that we're moving in the path of reduction of CO2, reduction of cumulative energy demands, ozone depletion rates, water depletion rates. It's not just CO2 that we're looking at. There are several aspects of sustainability. And the regulation part is making this effective so that we are not just producing the documents, but we can show that we're decreasing our footprint as we do it.
But what happens, this is for the project teams that are listening to us today, what's the risk of leaving sustainability documents too late in the process, and what advantage do teams gain by securing credible proof points at an early stage?
The big advantage will come when taxation comes. You need to have a baseline established for what you're doing. If you don't know your baseline, when the taxation starts, that will be your baseline. You'll need to calculate it then. So anything you've done between then and now to improve could potentially be lost. So if you've done as an early actor, but you're not recording and establishing your baseline, then you've got no way to prove what you've done, and you could make a 40% reduction in your footprint. Now you're starting from there. That's your starting point, and you've got to go further. For the project teams, I would strongly emphasise working with people that have sustainability documentation, and not just that, companies who have sustainability targets, because these companies will be able to show their records, and then you can use those records in your development of your sustainability roadmap.
And we have about 4 minutes left. Maybe you can share, if you had to narrow it down, what should developers and also contractors prioritize now to stay competitive and credible in the next few years, 5 to 10 years perhaps? Is it the quality? Is it the durability, compliance, sustainability? How can actually they bring all of this together effectively?
This is a very complex question to answer, but I simply take a step back. A lot of what we've been doing over the past 20 years is being copy and paste. So when we talk about specifications, when we talk about how we apply and how we approach projects, this has been generation by generation passed down and taught in the same way. Time is changing, however. There's a lot more innovation open to every aspect of the build. Please take a step back and look at what is new, what is available, and what additional benefits your structure can get from that.
I want to add one question. Perhaps on the future of look of this industry, construction industry, and what's in the pipeline for Sika in the future?
For Sika, education. So we try to keep our sustainability targets, our performance targets, our innovation targets ahead of all the markets. Okay, if we're ahead of the markets, we need to lobby how we're ahead of the markets. So we will do a lot of work with specifiers. We'll do a lot of work with construction companies, but we'll also do a lot of work with universities. We want to show these developments and these improvements and showcase what we're doing in order to help the market grow with us. So education for me, not just internally, but we educate and share what we have to our partners.
So that's actually, education is actually a strong base, despite we see the technological advancements, we have AI and great innovation right now. So the message now is clear: Malaysia's construction pipeline remains strong, but success will increasingly depend on execution quality, durability, and also credible sustainability evidence, not just speed and cost. So Damian, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, this morning. And again, that was Damian Lusty, the head of direct business, Sika Malaysia, and thank you for sharing your insights. And you can find this whole discussion on all of our social media platforms, and that includes astroawani.com.